Mailbox money. Today, y'all call it passive income and all the fancy names that's associated with it. But back in my day, the old heads, you just say, oh, yeah, that boy getting that mailbox money. It's the hallmark of wealth. It's the epitome of having other people work and pay you for what you've bought. Back then, I didn't have a clue what was going on or what they was talking about. But I saw some remnants of it, people having rental properties and things of that nature. But now look at it. Mailbox money. Checks coming in all the time. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What's the avenue and what's the approach to start getting mailbox money? What's the avenue to start getting passive income? Because everybody like the fact of having a check show up in the mail and you're not expecting it. Or you're expecting it, but you didn't have to sit there and work hard for it. So today we just going to dive into those aspects. We're going to bring up three things. There's more avenues out there to come up with passive income or mailbox money as they called it back in the day. But I'm going to talk about the three that I'm very familiar with. And we're going to talk about the main three that's easy accessible to you so you can get those going in your life. If you just stack the steps to get there and start putting your money to work and having your money work for you instead of you working for your money. But with all that said, let's get into the process. A couple things that let me address because I know people are going to ask. Number one, well, if those was real checks, why you still have them? Because of technology, I would get the checks in the mail and then I would just mobile deposit them. And then the second question I know I'm going to get is, well, why the hell are you still receiving checks when they have all this technology? They got Venmo, ACH, they can wire it to your account. I'm going to be honest. I was paranoid when I first started getting into investing. I didn't trust anybody. Only thing I would accept was cashier's checks or checks from a company or organization or money order from tenants. I wouldn't accept cash. I wouldn't accept anything else. I wouldn't let them send money to my bank account because I was scared that they have my bank information. This is going to be trouble. But of course, now I'm older, more mature. I've understood technology. So now, of course, I do all those technology things. But I keep these checks around to remind me of just where I started, just the paranoia, being scared. I was so hands off that I was scared to do different things because I thought that the little money I had in my bank account, somebody was easily susceptible to take it. So I was trying to block all avenues from somebody getting it. With all that being said, I know a lot of questions out there is, how did you get started? I got started by looking at what money is. That's the simplest way to put it. Money is just a tool. People use it to buy other goods to make them have gratification right now. Other people use it as a tool to buy assets that will keep giving them more tools so they can do what they want to, but they don't have to work for them. That's what mailbox money is. The key or goal of having passive income is for you to buy something, invest in something, and then it will keep paying you on regular basis, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly, whether it's yearly, quarterly, what have you. But you don't have to do any work for it. And I want to stress that is the mother's milk of wealth. When people don't have to work for money, somebody else got to work for the money, but the person who's receiving the money don't have to work for it. Let's get that understood. So again, we're going to talk about three different ways of passive income or mailbox money. Let's just keep it simple. ATM machines. The first one I'm going to talk about is the least likely to be profitable or beneficial now. I've had ATM machines. I've had ATM machines in places that didn't have nowhere near as much traffic as where I live now. And they did fairly well early on before the technology phase. When you see people see ads and get emails about investing in ATM machines and things like that, you got to sit there and question information. Yeah, you can get an ATM machine. Yeah, you can talk to a business, you can find a location, you can put ATM machines in there. And then, yes, you can get the transaction fees, which is about $3, $3.25 if you own the ATM machine outright. But the problem is technology is the thing that took over. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you went to an ATM machine to get money out? Because you got Venmo, Cash App, ACH, Apple Pay, you got all these other different devices where you could just pay for your goods there without having to take cash out. So now we can agree that most people don't go to ATM machines. That investment is a little way of the dodo bird. Now, I had ATM machines in Texas, and for the meantime, I would receive a consolidated check every quarter, and then businesses start taking all these other payment services. Customers just stopped going to the ATM machine. The same company that I started buying the ATM machines reached out to me and said, hey, we got a major discount on ATMs. We want you to grow your business on the ATM side. What I did was something that most people don't do. Question information. Like, yeah, I was receiving checks for them every quarterly, and the checks was handsome, but it wasn't nothing to lay my feet up on a beach with. But when they offered me this huge discount for the ATM machines, I knew the traffic where I was putting the ATM machines was way less than where I live. So what I proceeded to do was just go down the street and see what the traffic is like at a convenience store that had an ATM machine. And then as soon as I get there, I see two older generation people. They went to the ATM machines. I was like, okay, traffic's picking up. Okay, looks good. And then I proceeded to sit there for another about hour and a half, 2 hours. Those are the only two people that went to the ATM machine. But I wanted more data before I made this investment. And remember, this is a high traffic area. I went to the cashier of the convenience store and I said, hey, can I pay you to do me a favor? He said, what's that? I want you just to keep an eye on this ATM machine and just let me know during your shift how many people come to this ATM machine. And he said, you can save your money. Those two people that came in here earlier, that's going to be it. The next person that's going to use the ATM machine is going to be for something nefarious. He's like, people don't use the ATM machine. The owner of this store don't even want it in here because it's really just costing them more money in electricity than it's costing them for the transaction that he's getting with the machine. And then so I said, now, location, traffic-wise, is 5-10 times more than the locations where I was putting ATM machines. The traffic for ATM machines is dwindling fast. So it would behoove me to not go buy more ATM machines. And that's what the cashier said. He said, now with Apple Pay, cards, ACH, people don't have time to go. They don't want to pay those fees to the ATM machine when they could just do it right here at the register and don't have to worry about the fees. So with that, I proceeded to get rid of the ATM machines I had in Texas. And that stopped that mailbox situation. Now it's two more. The two biggest ones I want to talk about: dividend stocks, real estate. Those two can get you to where you want to be, but you have to be willing to put in the time, energy, effort, and money. The key point is and money early on. But you have to know which ones to get in. All stocks are not created equal. All real estate is not created equal. Everybody like the ideal of, hey, I'm just receiving checks in the mail without doing nothing. But the key is you have to do the work first. You have to put in those hours first to make sure that happens. For dividends, of course, you can look up a stock, you know how much a stock is making, just pull up their financials. You can look how much the dividend is, and the dividend could look good. But you better ensure yourself that the dividend that they're paying is covered by the earnings of the company. Now, I know it's closed-end funds out there that pay a monthly dividend, and then they'll pay an obscene dividend. It could be 8-10% dividend. But then when you look at their earnings, they're not even earning the money to pay the dividend. So that means they're borrowing money and putting themselves further underwater just to make sure you get your distribution. That means your capital, which is in the stock or ETF or closed-end fund, is more susceptible of going down. So you're losing your principal just to get a paycheck every month. You don't want to be there. When you go in to look at individual stocks and you want to be the Warren Buffett and you want to get great companies and grab great dividends, the key and the work that he did first was recognizing good companies. The mailbox money sounds good, but you have to put in the work to make sure that the company will pay you over a long time. They're making enough money to keep continually paying you. If you Google it, dividend kings and dividend aristocrats. Dividend kings are stocks or companies that has paid a dividend and raised their dividend every year for the past 50 years. Dividend aristocrats are companies that has paid a dividend and raised, and that's a key word, and raised their dividend for the past 25 years. Those are the most likely companies that will withstand the test of time and be able to pay you that dividend on a consistent basis. I know it's ETFs out there or what have you, and that is another realm that you can go. But I'm talking about individual stocks. If you just want to get in there and get that mailbox money every 3 months, every quarter, and then you can stack it where you can get one company that pay a dividend in January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So you get about 3 or 4 companies and they'll pay you a dividend check every month. And you just have to keep putting your money in those companies and they will keep generating your money. And they're fairly safe. Remember, it's dividend kings, dividend aristocrats. Besides the ETFs that's out there like the QQQI, SPYI, and some other. I'll list them right here. Different ETFs that pays them dividend and it's there for the long haul. That's what it takes. You have to do the work beforehand so you can get to the mailbox money. Last but not least, real estate is something I'm very familiar with. Like I mentioned earlier, 32 properties that send me 32 checks every month. But don't look at my 8-year journey to your year zero journey. When I was at year zero, I had one rental property. And then it's just me going through the process, learning the tenants, because the first property that I had, I was managing myself, seeing what they're going to do, seeing if they're trying to come up with an excuse to pay for rent. Not gonna lie, when you have that first, second rental property, the most nervous time you're gonna have is between the first and third of the month, wondering, hey, is that check gonna come? Because you still have an obligation to somebody else, the mortgage company. That little nerve-wracking fiasco right there, especially starting out, that's something you have to deal with. But then it goes on to other things. You want to set it up where you buy the asset and then you just, put the asset on autopilot and move on to something else. And then that's what I proceeded to do, hire property management. But just hiring property management and closing the blind eye to property management, it is a failed opportunity if you do that. The reason why is because the property management is trying to see what kind of owner you are. If you hands on, hands off, you don't pay attention, you can get screwed over. You can have a bad property manager. So what I do, and this is what I do every time, is if I'm on board a new property manager, I go through the role with him. I literally read the contract between me and the property manager. I literally read the entire contract between the property manager and the tenant. I see what's expected of me. I want to know what's expected of them. And then I go through on every contract and have a conversation with them and question everything they have. Then we start having a rapport. But the first 3-6 months, I'm hands-on. Hey, what's this? What's going on? If they plan to handle it is to give it to the highest paid contractor out there and just keep sucking funds from me, or they're trying to look out for the betterment of my money and my cash flow. Once I see that the property management is looking out for my greater good, also, of course, taking care of the tenant, but making sure that I'm not paying through the nose on repairs and different nuances that come along with having tenants, that's when I start backing off. That's when I give them a, higher expense budget before they can call me. So when at first it was everything that happened, I wanted to know. And then it goes $250, $500, whatever that expense is. But if it's $2,000 project going on, then hell yeah, I want to know that. But it's, again, setting that rapport. I try to do is when I have good property management, I try to find properties that I can just throw into them. I don't just be going buying properties blindly and then be like, oh, who the hell gonna manage them? Once I find a good property manager, I can keep feeding them so I don't have to go back to ground zero and start all over and go through that whole process again. All right, so the last thing here. I know everybody want to know, okay, well, you told us the quick ins and outs on how passive money works. The question is, how do we get there? Remember, I said time, energy, effort, and money. Time, energy, and effort is what it's going to take to put that in. The time is to study each one. You got to study what you want to do. The energy is going to take a lot of man hours outside of your 9-to-5 job that you have to put in to figure out these other nuances of these businesses. But is there other things out there besides the three I named? Of course it is. You got affiliate marketing, you got reach, you got blogging, you got YouTube channels, you got print on demand, you got online courses, you got tutoring, you can sit on boards, digital designs, you can do Fiverr. It's a lot of different things that's out there. But I want to talk about the old school ways, the things that I'm very, very, very familiar with and how those things work. But you have to put in the work to be able to do it. It's not just, hey, I saved up $20,000. I want to buy a rental property and then the rest is going to take care of itself. That is not the truth. Is once you set the processes and procedures and the standards in order, and it could take you weeks, months, may take you years, and that's including with the property manager. If you're going out there turning wrenches and still making the calls every time the tenant calls and say they're an issue, it's really not passive money. It's more like you're working another job, a second job, which there's no problem if that's what you want to do. But this video was more about passive money because people want to know, how can I go sit on the beach and not be doing work and still receive a check? But I'm not sitting here degrading people that don't have property managers. If you do, great. If you don't, great also. But it gives you another underlining, another factor to think about or to do once you push that off to somebody else and say, hey, you deal with the day-to-day operations. I'm going to go find more assets to buy so I can give to you so you can go deal with it again. And of course, the more assets you accumulate, the bigger the checks come. But when they say this word just passive, like, oh, you just got to have some money and throw it there and then it's 100% passive. If you do that, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. You need to do the work first early to receive the benefits of passive income later. Don't sit there and just believe it blindly. If you see all these get rich quick schemes and they throw that word passive money out there, if you're not doing the work early to make it happen, you will be in a hard time place. If you just go blindly and do it, it ain't going to be passive money. It's going to be passive problems. And that is the process. See you on the next one.